Good morning, guys. Sausage day. So we've actually already kind of started. We finished our setup. We got some tarps up. And what we're doing right now is weighing out some meat. So I'll go ahead and go explain how that works.
That one is about 10, 15 pounds too heavy. Okay. Let's get these next buckets filled. Yep, fill it up. All right. Stop there. All right, hit it. And with the 7 pounds on the bucket, you are dead on. Good to go.
60 pounds per pot of venison. Pot weighs 7 pounds. So if you can hit 67 pounds, that's about what you want. What we're cutting up here is pork trimmings. In total, we bought 700 pounds of it. The ratio we use for our sausage is 50-50. So we use 60 pounds of pork, 60 pounds of deer. That's one complete batch. When we mix in the seasonings, we account for that. The recipe we have is only for 60 pounds, but we double it to make it a 120 pound batch. And that's what you'll hear Mom talking about here in a second. We're here in the smokehouse with the Mommers, and she's mixing up seasoning right now. So the Schutz family sausage, she just told me, is a closely guarded secret, apparently. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna show you what we put in it. We're just not gonna give you the quantities. You guys can experiment with yourselves. But this will get you pretty close. And there's a million of them online, so you can just tailor whatever you want here. So basically, we've got salt, and we buy them, we buy it by the big old bag, and that still might not be enough, we're thinking.
And then you put in your black pepper. Now our recipe is kind of an offshoot of the Pottermill family recipe, which is what we originally started with. And we have kind of tweaked it because we like it a little more salty, we like a little more garlic. It's really kind of a personal thing. It's up to your taste. I'm mixing enough for 120 pounds.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I need.
So that's 2 batches. Okay, then we've got our crushed red pepper flakes. And then we put the garlic powder in. And we use the powder, garlic powder, not garlic salt, because that will affect how much salt you put in it. And then we get Cure. It used to be saltpeter, but saltpeter is getting hard to find, so we just get Cure from our local market, Granzines. It's modern Cure. And the Cure is what keeps the red color in your sausage. That's why we put it in there. It keeps it looking nice and red, and even after you dig it out of the freezer, like a year later, it's still nice and red. So the Cure is important if you want your sausage to look not gray and ugly. So this is enough for a 60-pound batch. And what we usually do is put the meat out on the table, which you'll see in a little bit, and just sprinkle this all over it and then mix it in. So what we're doing this year is we're gonna make a 120-pound batch. So this container will hold enough seasoning to do 120 pounds of meat.
Yeah, and she's got a couple done over here. So you can see sort of just the layers of what's going on here, right? Salt, pepper, garlic powder, some Cure, salt, pepper, garlic powder, some Cure. And so this pot right here is a double batch. But what we're gonna actually do is it's all gonna get mixed in on one mixing, and then it's all gonna get ground together. So we're just essentially doubling the recipe on each time. And so that's basically the seasoning. Mom will do 14 of these little containers because that's how much sausage we're making. All right, 60 pounds of venison, 60 pounds of pork. Here's our container. Let's get to it, Mike. So you just sprinkle that seasoning on it, whole thing, and now you just go like this, under, and you just mix it onto itself. And that'll make sure that all your meat gets a nice consistent seasoning as it's going through the grinder. If you season it after you grind it, then you might have pockets or bites of sausage where it's a little too seasoned or it's not enough seasoned, and this will help out with that. All right, we moved on to grinding. We're gonna grind that batch we just mixed. And so basically you can see here, all we do is we just take this bucket of meat, drop it in the grinder, and then it just pops out over here. This grinder is actually powerful enough just to go straight to like the chili grind, second grind, and it still looks pretty good. It still looks like it's chopping. The old grinders over here, we're still working on the big grind, the first grind.
A little more fragile though, that you can't just dump meat in it. You gotta slow feed it.
Yeah, you gotta meter this one. I know, I just saw that speed controller.
Yeah.
It's starting to steam that ice off. See that? Did y'all see that just slow down? So that's why we got this bigger grinder over here. So that way we could grind it up a little faster. We wouldn't have to worry about taking so much time. All right, guys, so we had a little problem with one of the grinders. The motor failed on it. So we're getting saved though, because this blue grinder is legit. I mean, it's keeping up with everything. So I think what we're gonna do is we're going straight to second grind with this one, meaning we're not doing the big hole, the first grind. We're doing straight to second, and then we're gonna set 2 grinders up over here. This is one of our friends' grinders, and then we'll get this other one set up for hamburger, and that, man, we'll be able to rip through it with that, because we can grind everything through this blue grinder once, and then we can come over here and grind the hamburger grind. You can see these plates are really small, and it produces essentially like ground beef consistency here. So that's what we end up stuffing. And so here soon we've got all this ground already from the big grinder. We've got one more venison batch to make, and then we've got some pork. We're gonna do some pork only, no venison, and that we use for like barbecuing or boiling, and that's a sort of a family favorite, so we'll go ahead and do that. But yeah, this big grinder has been amazing. I'll leave a link in the description if we can find it, and it's definitely a good grinder. The only problem is we don't have that small plate. So we'll have to run it through these other 2 grinders first. In this next clip, we're going to show how we set up the table where we do the stuffing and the tying. Basically, we lay this plastic down, and that helps those sausage slide along that when you're turning it. It makes it real nice. And so you're gonna have basically a 3-man crew on this table. You can run it with a 3-man crew. The stuffer, and then you have somebody helping him turn, and when that link is done, you cut it into individual links. And what Tommy's doing here is he's running out this string, and he's gonna be the tire. And basically we just wrap that string around the table, take it off, cut both loops, so you essentially double the amount of string you have, and we tie that in a knot, screw it to the table. And that works out to be a really efficient way of tying, because you just have this long string of sausage. We're also going to talk about casings coming up here in a second. We use beef casings, and the thing about the casings is they come as they do naturally from the animal. And what we want to do is we want to turn those inside out.
What we do is we turn our casings, and your casing's got to stay warm. You can see how water's pretty warm. What you want to do is you want to take that casing and you want to flip it inside out. That's what we turn it. You put the fat on the away from the sausage, and that's why you have to turn them. Butterfingers here today. I always take 2 fingers and kind of get a hole started, and once you get that casing going in there, it'll just fall in there. See how it just falls in there? And once you just keep going, and you want to keep those casings warm at all times, because if they get cold, they'll start busting on you when you try to stuff them.
So here my dad's just turning this casing, and this is a good way to rinse out your casings. And what he was talking about with the temperature was that you want to keep your temperature warm but not hot, and certainly not cold. And it's basically just a pliability thing for the casing. If you get it too cold, it'll bust in the winter, especially when it's really, really cold outside. So if you can keep them warm but not hot like they're cooking, that's the best temperature.
Like here, I'm just going to stop it and cut it. And then I'm going to finish dropping this through there. And then all you got to do is grab the casing and walk it up, and it'll turn inside out by its own. And then we turn right around and put it in hot water over here. And that's it, turn casing. All right, guys.
All right, so that's rinsing your casings out, getting all that like salt out of there. And then also when you turn them inside out, that's the way you want to stuff your sausage. Okay, that's it for part one. This clip that you're seeing is a preview, next week's video, where we'll go into how to stuff it, how to tie it, how to hang it, how to smoke it. In this video, we just talked about weighing your meat, seasoning it, mixing it, grinding it, and then we quickly talked about turning your casings and how to set up your stuffer table. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and get the bell on so that you can get notified when I release my next video to finish it off. I appreciate you guys for watching.